first class was about Emunah and HaKadosh Baruch Hu. The second class is a Kiruv class taught by one of the Kiruv giants of our generation, someone who has been so successful for many years in showing the beauty, the sweetness, and the awesomeness of Torah. His name speaks for himself, and he always says, I give great introductions. But it's a great honor and a privilege to have one of Aish Torah's sensations, Rav Yom Tov Glazer, to give a class on the psychology of a Kiruv encounter. What does the psychology of a Kiruv encounter mean? We're about to find out. Rav Yom Tov Glazer.
Good Tavach, everybody. Most of what I'm going to share is not really nice to be saying, and obviously it should stay private, because if you share these secrets out there, we're going to look like we're like running a cult or something. But it's important to know a lot of human psychology. A lot of human psychology when you're anytime in a position of influence, obviously, because that's what we're ultimately talking about here. Is you're in a position of influence, and throughout your life you'll be in positions of influence. I don't know what you guys are doing with your time this week, but I'm just inviting you that I'm running my seminar in Dushinsky on Shmuel Navi this particular week, all week, 6:30 to 11:30, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, 25 hours together. If anyone wants to challenge themselves to some heavy personal growth work, that's going on this week. I can't not mention it because it's about 6 months since I did one in Israel, and probably be another 6 before I do it again, because I'm kind of busy with business people. I run it mostly for executives and Menalim and people like that. So but that's the just putting it out there if you want to be there. We're not videoing this. Hopefully that'll work. So basically, we're talking about, messing with secular Jews, and which is a really good idea. And sometimes you feel bad for them because you are turning them into Bali Tshuva, and everyone knows there's nothing worse than a Bali Tshuva. And so, but don't worry about that. Just magarb them anyway, and they'll wake up 10 years later realizing that no one wants their kids in school nor to marry any of them. 8 years after that. But that's okay. We're going to focus on the fact that they're going to have a chelek and olam haba. You're going to turn their olam hazeh to scrap without the S, but at least the olam haba is going to be great. So go ahead and mess with these guys. Now, so a couple things. One is that they don't have any. They don't have really. Most of them don't have anyone really there for them. We're in a very narcissistic generation, and chances are the people who would be there for them, i.e., parents, siblings, they're probably just stuck on their devices, and no one's really there for them. And so you can get very far by just showing some dedication and be the person. Yeah, who's taking the notes here? Yeah, so maybe we'll write down a few words here and there. So be the one who is dedicated in their lives, because they're probably getting let down a lot, and you're not the guy who lets them down. It also totally freaks them out when you call them randomly to wish them a good Shabbos on Friday, or if you invite them, they can't understand why in the world you want them around, and no one else seems to invite them anywhere but, just to escort them when they felt uncomfortable to go somewhere. And here you're inviting them to come. And also, if they ever ask a question, is learn how to say, I don't know. Because that means everything else you said you did know. Okay, so it's a nice diuk. It's a psychological diuk they make. That if you say you don't know, and you can even know and just pretend you don't, but if you say you don't know an answer to a question, that really says a lot about the questions you answered already. So saying I don't know is great, but then you really lock it in later when they call them 3 days later with the answer. And they don't even hear the answer. Their jaws drop that you cared enough to listen to their original question and to go get the answer, and now you're answering the question. They didn't remember they had a question. And here you are, concerned about their question and coming back to them with an answer, which you might have known in the first place. But as I said, this is the psychology of Kiruv. So just come back with a couple of the answers later. The next is that it is important to understand that accepting the person exactly where they are, is super important. What's happening, if you're wearing a kippah, they're a goy in your eyes. Okay, if you're wearing kippah, if you're wearing tzitzis, that person's a goy in their own eyes, right? They were grasshoppers in their own eyes. They're going to see themselves like a goy, and it's really important for you to be able to establish to them that they're fully accepted where they're at. In fact, if you don't, meaning if you just go in there with it, you're like superimposing a kippah and tzitzis on this guy when you talk to him, and you're like, you're already not letting him be right where he's at. Even unconsciously, you're sending out a vibration of judgment, and they're not going to be very receptive. I mean, imagine if you thought I judged you. How much would you receive from my teaching or any experience if we were just talking? Or, I bumped into you in a airport lounge or something. And how much are you going to receive from me if you're feeling judged? Not much. And so it's really important you're able to establish acceptance of where they are right there. Now, how you do that, there's two ways to do that. One way is to break through your own issues. And I'll show you how that's done. Break through your own issues because you can get to a vibrational level of acceptance that you don't even have to communicate it. Your eyes will do all the work for you. But that's deeper work. That's the kind of work I do, professionally. But you can get yourself to a level of acceptance where you don't even have to use any communication. But until you get there, you communicate it. Just tell the guy, that's a lovely tank top you're wearing. Can I borrow it? It's like, you look a little funny in that tank top. Okay, I don't need to borrow it, but it really looks nice on you. Yeah. And anyway, but you can, and you got to be careful of Hanifa, because don't compliment anyone on something that's obviously breaking the Torah, because that's forbidden. You're never allowed to compliment someone on something that's breaking the Torah. And so, it's a little tough to do it sometimes, because let's say you want to compliment the guy on his Corvette, and he's in it, and it's Shabbos day. Do you compliment the guy in the Corvette, or do you not? Because you're not complimenting his driving on Shabbos. You're just saying something nice about the Corvette. So, whatever. But be careful, Hanifa. Anyway, but the main thing is you want to establish that. So let me just show you how you do that. Did you guys get Mechlil's email? Where's Mechlil? I didn't even get that. Give a high five or nothing. He just walked out, act like that. He was a Talmud of mine years ago. That's nice. Hey. I usually throw them. Just for fun, but everywhere. There. I'm not going to throw them. I'm behaving myself. Let's try this one. Oh, there we go. So that's a Venn diagram, and obviously this is circle A, this is circle B, and the middle is where they're mixed, where A and B have merged. And so what happens is people make the grave error of merging acceptance with approval. Acceptance acceptance and approval are two totally separate words. Approval means that there are standards of behavior. Okay? Approval means there's standards of behavior. Acceptance just means that I'd be him, that I lived his whole life. You understand? If you walk out on Shabbos, like say you walked out this day, today, Shabbos day, you find some guy with tattoos and a mohawk and body piercings smoking a cigarette. Shabbos day. Now, what if you lived that guy's entire life? His brain, his life, his sibling order, his family, everything. Which guy would you be? That'd be you. And if he lived your whole life, that'd be him walking out on on Shabbos. You understand that you can accept absolutely anybody as a result. Let me make a bracha. You understand the word acceptance? I'd be him. So whoever it is you'd like to makarv, that would be you. So why would you judge a guy? Had you lived his whole life, that would be you. You'd be the guy you're makarving. And just like, you want to accept yourself. Let me tell you another little secret about accepting yourself. This is off the Kiruv record. But just for your own personal growth. A lot of people make the grave error of constantly being growth-oriented. It sounds good, like you're growth-oriented. But the problem is you're never where you're at. You're never where you're at. And so you never get to experience God where you're at. Some secular guy a secular Israeli who could reach Shmoneh Esrei would probably have a deeper kavanah than anyone in this room, because your settings are trying to get somewhere, and so you're not really there when you daven. You should stop all your growth before Shmoneh Esrei. Just stop all your growth. Back up, step in, and be who you are, where you are in that Shmoneh Esrei. You want to grow further? Do it after you pray. This is your chance to talk to God from where you're at. And I had this happen. I was in a minyan, and we needed a 10th guy, and we could not find him. We finally just popped a keep on some long-haired hippie freak. And, the guy came in. He was basically going along with it. I think he was stoned, personally. And anyway, we were like, we're leaving the shul. He was still in the Shmoneh Esrei. We walked out. He was still like this, reading along in his Shmoneh Esrei. And I don't think this guy ever did Shmoneh Esrei before, so it really blew him away. But what I realized was he was there. He's not from that concept of growth. Anyway, but don't let growth kill you. You got to be where you're at. Going into Shabbos is not a growth time. Just be the Yid you've become in a relationship with God on Shabbos. Okay, you want to grow? Motzei Shabbos. Okay. Grow after Shmoneh Esrei. But you get what I'm saying. I see you guys got quieter. You were already quiet. You can always tell when a crowd's getting something. I don't know how quiet gets quieter, but it does. I think there's probably a bit of a rustling usually, and then when you're making the right point, it gets really quiet. No one's coughing, no one's sneezing, blinking. So, anyway, acceptance is I'd be him. Standards is approval. But what winds up happening is you only accept because you probably never heard this before. There's how do you call it? Information. It's propriety information from the Possible Use seminars is that acceptance and approval get blurred. And so what happens is you wind up only accepting the people you approve of. You get that? You wind up accepting only the people you approve of, which means you're a stink bug. You are no fun. Meaning you're no fun to have around, because people all of a sudden have to people have to do something to get your acceptance. And who wants that? You're difficult to be close to. Good luck doing Kiruv. If you're not an absolute pleasure and everyone lets their hair down whenever you're in the room, what kind of Kiruv are you ever going to do? That's what I'm saying, is you got to go to the deeper, you got to go deep tissue on this stuff of your personality and make sure that you got acceptance and approval distinguished from one another so that you can have the highest standard. How many of you guys, get ready, I don't want to have you raise your hands in front of others about this, but how many of you have dropped your standards to be accepted? When no one was looking, there was a situation where you didn't hold your usual standards, maybe the standards of your household, because you want to be accepted. You know, and that's, some people raise their hands anyway. Okay, then let's all be courageous. How many of us have dropped our standards to be accepted? Yeah, and the rest of you are lying, okay? That ain't funny, man. That's not good. And in Kiruv, oh my gosh, like, you never want to do that. Never want to do that, because then you're like him. So what's the big deal? Like, why should they come close if you yourself don't have standards that have any real, backbone? So who are you carving anyway? So the beauty of separating, and there's many beauties of separating, but one of the big beauties is that you can now keep your standards. You don't drop your standards for nobody. You keep your standards and you be the most accepting person ever. And that's it. And you don't have to worry about anyone else accepting you. Because you have your standards and that's it. People can do with it what they want. Now the reason why, I'll just show you some of the depth of this. The reason why society is such a cesspool. Do you know what a cesspool is? You ever been to camp and they have to collect all the toilet stuff into a giant pool? That's called a cesspool. Okay? A cesspool is a gigantic toilet. Okay? That they have to pump it out and then bring it to the sewer system. So the reason why society, and let's say the U.S. is such a cesspool and Western countries is such a cesspool, because they have the opposite problem. What's the most important thing, let's say, in the U.S.? What's their number one value? Acceptance. But they haven't blurred, so they think not only do you have to accept everybody, you also have to what? Approve. They got the same problem, just the opposite direction. And so now you have to approve everybody, so then there's no such thing as right and wrong. There's no more standards. And then after a while, everything's right. Because it's not politically correct to have a stance on something being right or wrong. Well, right and wrong is the whole binary nature of reality. And that was the chet. It's a das, toiverat, binary. And when you live in a society that's lost they've completely lost track of right and wrong, of binary reality, to the point where they don't even know who boys or girls are. And if you're wearing tight pants right now, you're also a victim. Because they've been switching it up on you. You don't even know it. Yeah, but that's their problem. That's their crazy world. Is that they've got these two blurred. So you got to accept them, and also right and wrong no longer can be stated. And then after a while, you lose the binary nature of reality. Boys don't know if they're boys. Girls don't know if they're girls. And everything turns into a lost compass. Moral compass disappears. And I don't have to review Parshas, Noach, or Parshas Vayera, where Sodom and Gomorrah are taken out, all from a loss of a moral compass. Yeah.
Which one doesn't Western culture have down? The acceptance or the approval?
They're really into acceptance at the expense of right and wrong standards. Right. We're big on standards, and you should know, by the way, while I'm on it, is you guys are the enemy of Western civilization. It'll just be a matter of time before the intellectuals point to the observant Jews. But every single thing we hold is just, every year, slowly but surely becoming that we are the scourge of Western civilization's values. But it's just a matter of time before the intellectuals just point to us and say, these are the people. These are the people who are the racists. These are the people who are the bigots. These are the people who have called, the LGBT community evil. Now, they'll point to us in the end. They always do. I mean, they're going to point to us or the Christians. They'll point to us. Yeah.
Maybe the answer to this question is just that it's very difficult. But how do you approve, or how do you accept someone doing an action that you yourself don't approve of? Or is that just placing your standards in that?
Right, so that's where we're going to thicken this up a little bit. We're going to add the word here, doing. Giving you more propriety stuff here. Doing versus being. Okay? Doing versus being. When you're accepting someone, you're accepting who they are in the being. When you're approving or disapproving, it has to do with what they're doing. and you make it real clear. It'd be like, let's say your kid's busted, and you got to spank him or put him in his room, whatever you got to do. So then you would say to him ultimately, what you did was beneath you. Yeah, what you did was beneath you, because in your being, I still hold very highly of you, young man. You have to be very careful punishing kids, because they didn't do this work. So they could easily think once they get punished, who they are is bad. And how many of us, it didn't go so hot as kids in school and have deep down, we would never tell anyone, but we have deep down a bad thing going on, which is turning us into the tzaddik, because no one should ever know, because I'm such a tzaddik. But what's driving the tzaddik? Bad. Bad drives the tzaddik. Because what we've been doing is another thing we got from Western Civ that seeped into the frum world, not just your tight pants, but also is that Western Civ thinks, sorry, I put that the wrong way. Western Civ tells you, Arbeit macht frei. Doing leads to being. And it's hard to quote the gate of Auschwitz, but they tell you doing leads to being. That you can just cover everything up by doing, and that somehow you will be. You'll be happy. You'll be rich. You'll be fulfilled. You'll be at peace. You'll be secure. And so that's what they tell you, and that's what everyone does. Except it doesn't work. It's like a carrot in front of a horse. It just always tries to get it, never gets it. You just do and do and do and do and do, but after enough doing, there's doo-doo everywhere. And when you die, they'll put on your tombstone, done. And so when you're involved in it, coming back to acceptance and approval, is that when you accept somebody, you're accepting the person in their mahus, who they actually are. And then what you start to realize is that all the cover-up is really going this way, is that we cover up our being with more doing. So if I see myself as bad and I'm going to do all the right things and be Mr. Tzaddik, and then everyone's going to call me a Tzaddik, and little do they know that Tzaddik's actually generated by Russia. That the actual Panemius is Russia and the Chitzonius is Tzaddik. I'm just giving one example. I'm usually working with like CEOs and stuff, and they're like, crazy stuff going on in the being that's leading to that kind of doing. And their wives and kids haven't been to dinner, and besides Shabbos dinner, they tell me I'm a Shabbos Tati. You know what a Shabbos Tati is? Have you guys ever heard that? Shabbos Tati is when you're in Gan and it's your turn to be the Shabbos Tati. Yeah, no kid wants to be the Shabbos mommy, but I get businessmen all the time telling me they're Shabbos Tati. So the first time I heard it, I was like, what does that mean? Like you went back to Gan? And he's like, no, I'm home only on Shabbos. And so you got to get into the being. What would cause a guy to sacrifice everything he was living for? And the answer is usually going to be, some kind of self-image he receives at work that he won't get at home, or perhaps the fear of intimacy, because at home it's very intimate compared to professional hours of the day. So I'll just increase the less intimate hours where I can stay king, and I don't have to deal with home. But all of this is a disaster. Let's just go a little further, because I don't want to macarve your kids. Guys, I'm just going to go a little further, and then we're going to move on. I don't want to macarve your children. So I just want to say this. Make sure these are separate, acceptance and approval. Because if your kids, for 1 second, especially if you're going to wind up living in the United States of Asav, if your kids for 1 second think that acceptance is tolui on approval, that means your home is not safe. Because your home has an eject button. And all that eject button says is that if they, obviously there's behavior in a home. But the streets of the U.S. look very accepting. The truth is they'll chew you up and spit you out. But they look a hell of a lot more accepting than a home that's blurred acceptance and approval. And so if you don't have that straight in your home, your kids are going to find somewhere that is accepting. And you'll notice it in your own life that you've gone towards what's accepting. And even some of the most loyal people in your life you've forsaken just for acceptance, because you didn't feel so safe there. But once you have these separate, you accept those kids for who they are, and all you do is just be a great example when it comes to you. That you just be an example for your children. And one last thing is never offer children advice after bar mitzvah. They could take the words right out of your mouth. There's nothing you can say to a bar mitzvah boy that he doesn't know about your hashkafa already. So just leave the kid alone and be a good example. And just zip it. And from bar mitzvah on, you're no longer his advisor. Okay, that's not for you guys. Now, let's get back to the psychology of Kiruv. I'd like to share with you a real key way of getting serious siyata d'shmaya in Kiruv. Serious siyata d'shmaya. Now, we're going to do another Venn diagram. We're going into number 4 here. And this is commitment. So what I'm about to say is going to change your lives forever. That's why I chuck. I just don't know where to chuck it. So I want to catch it.
This window opens.
You'll be in charge of throwing that away. Nice catch. Other window. Yeah.
This window opens.
Oh, that window. It'll wind up in a class by the base window. Okay, so look up at this Venn diagram over here. What you'll notice here is the word decide. And over here is the word commit. Maybe a little more propriety info, but this is really one of the biggest game changers you will ever have in your life. Decide versus commit. So the word decide has the word side in it, which means to eliminate, like pesticide, homicide, genocide, suicide. Okay, the word side has eliminate. Why? Because in order to make a decision, well, decisions are always based on reasons, and the reasons lead to the decision. Reasons lead to decisions. So what does that mean? Let's say you have 5 options. So you're going to get the pluses and minus reasons, yes, for and against, for and against, for and against, for and against. The one that has the most for and the least against, you now come up with the decision. But why is it in a Venn diagram with the word commit? It's because you didn't realize that you've been living in decide world. You think you committed, you didn't commit. You didn't commit. You're in decision world, and that's why you'll notice wherever you learn, I don't know where you guys learned, but wherever you learn, you're doing it your way. You do it your way. You show up when you want. You know, you're doing things your way. They had a way they created that particular place of learning. Every place has a style. Every place has rules. Every place has what they're doing. You agreed to go, but you do it your way. Because you live in decision mode all the time. And so what happens is when you make, based on reasons, you make a decision, then you move it over to commitment. People live in the decision world, unfortunately, and that means that the reasons why you chose what you chose are suddenly gone. And so when the reasons are gone, you're gone too. You're here today and gone tomorrow based on reasons. In other words, on your phone, like you can enable certain things, like for example, spelling correct while you type. You know, you can enable things on the settings of a computer. So you know what you are? You are what you call reasonable. Okay? Reasonable means let reason stop you. Let reason stop you. I used to as well. I mean, how many times I got a call from it? Can I borrow this phone? How many times I got a call? You know, for about 18 years, I think. Hello? Yeah. Oh, Dad, yeah. Yeah, I can't talk now. Yeah, it's bad timing. Yeah, I gotta go. Now, as you know, fathers offer unsolicited advice. And when they offer unsolicited advice, do you feel like you're 20 or do you feel like you're 6? Which one? 6. How long are you going to spend on the phone with someone who makes you feel like you're 6? And so the guy can never call at the right time. And so, in other words, you committed to that man or your decision? Which one? Where do you live? In the decide mode. Your own father. The one person who would refinance his house or sell the thing for any medical or legal emergency if you had one.
Why is that decision made?
Because the reason, meaning, if I feel like I'm 6 on the phone with him, so that's enough reason to hang up. Whereas I can just be committed to that man. I'll stay on the phone with him no matter what.
That's even if he makes you feel like you're sick.
That's right, because I have the maturity to realize the reason he's offering me all that advice is because he loves me. I mean, my father offers financial advice constantly. I don't even understand what he's saying half the time. Because I'm more of a creative type. And so, but I'll ask you, my father ever called you and give you financial advice? So why does that 90-year-old man in California keep calling me? Answer. He loves me. And so I had to learn to unscramble the advice to the words I love you and actually stay on the phone with the guy. And also to get over this, remember being and doing? Being is little kid. Doing is hang up the phone. And then be like the guy when it comes to surfing or something. Like. And so catching the being and doing aspect inside of me and realizing that he's just offering financial services here. Because he loves me. Yeah.
Wouldn't it still make sense to let reason dictate most things that you do?
Yeah, like fleischigs or milchigs. Maybe. But, I mean, if the fleishig place is closed, you don't bring your wife and kids home. You take them to a milchig place, But that's fine. But there's a lot of things in life where you don't want reasons to stop you. Okay? And one of them is when you're carving a yid. Because when you're carving a yid, he's going to give you every reason to stop. And you're going to come up with reasons to stop. And you have to stay committed. You guys notice anything under the word commitment? Let's practice our Spanish. Everyone say nada. Nada. There ain't nothing under there. And commit. When you commit to something, it's, in other words, you're saying, I'm in. I'm in. Everyone say, I'm in. Yeah, when you're in no matter what. Nothing stops you. Now, if you lock your crosshairs on someone you're macarving, and you're fully committed, and you're not going to take no for an answer, you're going to have something called LSB, which stands for Large Siyata Dishmaya. Okay? You're going to have large siyata dishmaya, because when you commit to something, when you're committed to something, a little bell goes off in heaven and crazy stuff starts happening. When you're totally committed to something, it's the case. You've been in airports where you've seen, I don't know how many airports you guys go on, but I feel like I live in airports. I'll see, where you're in the airport, you'll see some lady with the costume of United or something, running some crying lady through the whole place, past those lines all the way through. She got the plane to actually stop and come back to the gate. Because what had happened is the lady came to the window and said, I'm here for this flight, I'm late. We had a flat tire in the way. And she's like, we closed the flight 15 minutes ago. I'm sorry. And the lady says that she's on her way to her father's funeral. And she's like, come with me, and her radios and because she's getting a large shot of Shmaya now because she's totally committed going to her father's funeral, and random people are going to flip their lives upside down to make sure she gets on that plane. And you see it over and over and over again. When you're committed, you get Siyata Shmaya. And if you're noticing a lack of Siyata Shmaya in your life, well, the answer's on the board. Because you live in decision world. When you live in decision world, because I'll call it's got a specific term, it's called Olam HaTeva. You live in the natural world. Well, natural world is tit for tat, cause and effect. That's the world you live in. But people who live in commitment land live in a world called Olam HaPela. And Olam HaPela means wonder world. Pela means wonder, like a pelophone's a wonder phone. Yeah? Olam HaPela is the wonder world, and I've been living there for years. It's a blast. I can tell you, I just can't wait to see what's next. It's so exciting to live there, and it all comes from commitment. My whole career, the rabbi said about me being that guy in the Kiruv world for all these years, all I did was commit. All I did was commit, and ever since then it's been Siyata D'Shmaya. It's all been Siyata D'Shmaya. I just get called from this or that, or everyone's calling me all over, and they have high-stakes situations. They call me to do it, to be the speaker, whatever it may be, because they know when I say I'm in, period. There's nothing under there. There's no reasons, and it's just going to be Siyata D'Shmaya from beginning to the end. don't even have to think about whether it's going to succeed or not. It's going to be high levels of siyata d'shmaya all the time. For example, I'm leaving the old city, Motzi Shabbos, just like tonight, and I have, hey, my son, Moshe. How you doing, Moshe? What a surprise. I need a seat. Some seats over here. You got one right there? Okay. Of all times to come in for this story. You probably heard this. Anyway, I always found traffic laws to be suggestions. And I've never been so committed. I've been much more in decision mode about traffic laws. And I never even learned them until recently. I had to go to driving school in Israel, unfortunately. And just like literally a month ago, which was really fun. But anyway, so I was leaving the old city Saturday night, and this couple asked if they can have a ride to the central bus station. I live in Nachlav, so central bus station, because they have a bus leaving. And so come on in the car, I'll get you over there. I'm like, when's your bus? They said it's at midnight. I look at my clock, it says 11:50. I said, it's a miracle you chose me. Watch this. I turn the stereo up to 11. Ours goes to 11. And I just start flooring it. And I'm ripping out of there. And I was going to make it with even minutes to spare. And I'm heading up King George Street when I notice, a loudspeaker and, lights and stuff outside the back of my rearview mirror. And I realize maybe there's an emergency, so I pull over, and the emergency's just behind me. He's pulled over also. I've been calling him, and the whole crowd gathered on the street. I guess they were stopping to watch a high-speed chase. Guy comes to my window, and he says to me, you've made 17 moving violations, and I've been following you since Zion Gate in the old city. I finally caught you here on King George Street. And I was like, he's like, license and registration? I give him my license. Registration is like the previous year. He's like, that's 18. Because I didn't have a current registration. There's couples in the back of the car. I'm like, I'm really sorry. We were going to make it. So, anyway, this cop parks in front of my. So the cop's over there, and I'm waiting for my ticket. The crowd's still around the car because I guess it was a high-speed chase that I didn't realize I was in. And it's happened a few times to me. But high-speed chases, you have to be knowing you're in a high-speed chase to be called a runner. I didn't know I was. So I had one time. The cop finally just took me over on the side, and he's going like, pull over. And so it was amazing timing. There was an exit. So I'm like, no problem. He was like down the highway out his back window like that. Anyway, so, okay, here's where the story turns on Sneas. But what happens is a little Mazda Miata, the Mazda Miata, the little tiny red Mazda Miata convertible pulls right up. Blonde lady in the front seat gets out of the Mazda Miata. It's not like there's parking on King George. There's nowhere to park there. We're just parked because I'm being pulled over. We're in a lane. She pulls over in front of me, gets out of the car, walks right past my window to the cop behind. Cop gets out of the car, and next thing I know, they fall into each other's arms. And I'm not going to go into graphic detail, but she's basically pinned against the cop car for the next 10 minutes. So I'm just like, what in the world? And the couple's like, so 10 minutes later, I decide that's it. I'm going to I got to interrupt them. Like, what's going on? I'm tapping on the cop's shoulder like this. He comes up for air as if he doesn't even know where he is. He doesn't even know where he is. He looks at me like, I don't know if I'm wearing my shrine. I'm the worst thing you could ever see right then. And he remembers who I am, and he's like, get back in your car. Get back in my car. I said, I guess it'll be a few minutes. Anyway, he finally comes back to my car. It's now like 12:15, I don't know what. Hands me throws into my car the registration, the license, and tells me, "Have a nice day." 12:15 at night, have a nice day. Gets into the Mazda Miata with the girl, and they drive off. His partner's in the cop car in the back just going like, he just got in the cop car and drove away also. So I'm sitting there baffled with this couple when the crowd had already dispersed, except this one guy who's standing outside the car on the sidewalk. And he says to me, "Are you Rabbi Glazer?" I said, "Yeah." He says, "You don't know me, but I was in your essentials class this week." That's the class right across the street. You guys, if you're ever have a break from yeshiva, you can come to that class. We have classes there all day. You learn a lot about Kiruv in there. Just warning you, there are girls in there. Now, thanks for the warning. So, anyway, so it's like a little seminary. Anyway, I tell the guy, I said, "Get in, I'm going to the central bus station. Get in." So the guy sits next to me. You know what he tells me? He tells me that he's been suffering depression for like 3 months. And someone told him, a secular guy, he said, someone told him, go to the old city, go in Asia Torah, and they'll make you happy. Well, it didn't work. He'd been at Aish for like 3 days. He'd been in my class. A lot of people in my class, I barely recognized the guy. And we wound up parking in front of the central bus. What was he doing? He was supposed to be in Aish for 3 months. He was going to the central bus station, going to his family in Tel Aviv overnight, and changing his ticket to, get out in the next day or two, as soon as he could get out. We sat in front of the central bus station for an hour. He just cried in the front seat of my car. I told him that, you're just getting started here, and, you can make it, right? Boinu Yerushalayim, Hashem, right? And the guy stayed. He stayed 3 months, became frum. He wound up staying, learning yeshiva. He became a Baal Tshuva, got his act together, became a happy person. But that whole story is just a really long-winded siyata d'shmaya for a committed person in Kiruv. When you're committed, you see these magical things happen all the time, all the time, all the time. It's just every day you get to see another miracle happen because you're committed. And you don't let reason stop you. Just never let reason stop you. You keep your standards all the time as well. They're gone. I mentioned that. I was in this building doing what was called a JWRP, Jewish Women's Renaissance Project. It's a massive, middle-aged women's Kiruv organization. And I'm playing a concert for them. And one of the women saw one of these ladies on the side, who was not part of the dancing. The whole place is dancing. It's like 400 women dancing. And she says, "Why aren't you dancing?" She says that I don't think it's nice that, Rabbi Glazer's wife's home, preparing Shabbos or whatever she's doing, and Rabbi Glazer's watching 400 women dance. Not nice. And so the madricha of that city, who didn't know me, never met me in her life, she said, "How do you know he's watching the women dance?" In the big hall we have downstairs, the little alcoves, the lady alcove staring at the clock. She says, "What do you think? He's playing a concert for 400 women. That's obviously watching them." And she says, "Come dance with me. I promise you, when we walk by, when our part of the snake gets by the stage, you'll see it's not." She just went out on a limb. Now, she had no idea that when the dancing starts, I turn my microphone towards the koisel. The drummer faces me. We both kind of look like that, and we both just lock on, and then we just rock them for 30 minutes. We just rock them, and really we're just jamming, the two of us, the whole time. It's our private jam session with 400 people in the background, while we rock. That woman became from also. She became a mamash Baal Tshuva. Just commitment and standards and And that you just get siyata d'shmaya over and over and over and over again. You live in olam hapele. Next thing is you got to know the home run. The home run is Yerushalayim. You can send a kid. You can spend a year with a kid, working with him in America, or you can send him for 1 week here. 1 week here is bigger than a year in America. You have to understand also psychologically. In America, everything that's outside of shul is going. The current goes the opposite way. So you got to be like a strong salmon. Salmon at the end of their lives find the river they were born in. It's amazing. They know the river they were born in. I mean, they've been swimming around the ocean their whole lives, but they find the river they were born in and swim up it, lay their eggs, and die at the top of the river of where they're from. And they have to. It's not easy to get up a river. Some of those rivers are heavy rapids that they're climbing up, and they're just somehow driven to get home, just like Klal Yisrael. But you're asking this kid to swim upstream big time. He's going to need a lot of strength for that. Big time strength to be able to swim home to his birthplace. When you're doing Kiruv outside of Israel, everything's going the opposite direction. You're swimming against the current at all times. You yourselves are used to swimming against the current. This guy is not. And so, when you leave shul in Eretz Yisrael, and you leave the Koisel, or you leave any shul in Yerushalayim, everything's going your way. It's going with the current. When you leave shul in the U.S., the second you walk out of that building, you're going against the current. You're automatically going against the current. You're asking this kid to somehow have the strength to outdo, the currents of what's going on there. So therefore, you get him to Eretz Yisrael. Now, how are you going to get him to Eretz Yisrael? Because maybe the guy ain't got no dough. And the answer is, buy him a ticket. Just buy him a ticket. You may say, well, I ain't got no dough. So you find someone with a lot of money, you tell him, listen, I got to tell you about this kid. I've met this amazing kid, and I believe he'll be a Baal Tshuva. We just got to get him there. We got to get him in the current, where not only in the shul or at the Koisel or in the yeshiva or wherever he's in essentials class, wherever he goes, it's in the current. Even for a week, it's a home run. And so you just do it. You know how many people I've flown here with no money? No money. I had one guy, I met him in a Shabbaton. This guy. I told him, listen, I want you to come back with me. Back to Eretz Yisrael. So what do I do? I get to the airport, and there's the kid. And I'm like, that's my boy, you're coming back. He says, yeah, where's the ticket counter? I'm like, you're going to buy a ticket at the airport? He's like, yeah, isn't this where you buy tickets? $2,500 later, I have no money. I'm just like, slid my card, $2,500, boom. Kid didn't realize you'd call a travel agent. He didn't know. And what am I going to do? Tell him, sorry, Charlie, next time call a travel agent, so I'll see you in a week. No, put him on the plane with me. And it was one phone call. I called one rich guy, met this kid in a hotel. And I know you've probably never done anything like this before, but if you don't mind, just pop in $2,500 in my account for this kid, because I can't afford to do it, and I wasn't going to say no. And boom, that's it. Put the money in the account. Siyata d'shmaya. Siyata d'shmaya. Every single time, money is of no issue. You fly them over here. Fly them over there, and it's also an amazing home run because the professionals here, for example, Aish or Sameach or many other culture issues, Mayanot, maybe, I don't know. But there's answers that the rabbis have in these organizations that, and not to mention the current that I brought up, or I already mentioned them. So the home run is to get them here. just want to tell you one more thing about some psychology here is called looking good. And I'm calling it looking good, but what it really means is that people are more interested in looking good than being good. What you're offering when you're doing is for someone to be good, but it ain't gonna look good at all to his family if he becomes observant. It's just not gonna look good, and people would rather look good than be good. See, you guys think when someone becomes Baal Tshuva, the number one fear is change. It's not the number one fear. The number one fear is losing their support group, and they will lose them real quick. Because, let's look at it this way. This would be a nice... not going to do that right now. But the point is that let's say like I'm just going to say it real quick. Every human being lives in a fictional agreement. We don't because we're observant. So the Torah is not a fiction. But every person lives in a fictional agreement. And the person you're makarving is in a fictional agreement with his best friends and his family, his siblings. They're all in some agreement. When you makarv him, you're asking him to give up the agreement of his family and to enter into the agreement of, Klal Yisrael, which is a totally different agreement than a secular family. My goodness. It's like 180-degree different agreement. They have no proof for their agreement. Their agreement is just total fiction. How do you know? Because if you take the kid in Westchester, New York, and you fly him 1,000 miles in any direction, 1,000 miles, and fly him 2 miles in any direction, there's a different agreement in that area. Think about it, every 20 miles there's a new agreement. It starts getting arbitrary. You start to realize all the agreements, no matter where you're from, whether you're in New Guinea and then you fly to Norway, and you fly from Norway, you go down to Africa, no matter where you go, you're going to find a fictional agreement. Well, this kid's psychology is totally mated to the fictional agreement he's from. And so all the truth in the world will never be more important to him than the agreement, than the fictional agreement, because you are interrupting his very sanity because of the agreements that he's locked into, A, and B, is that you're taking away everyone who gives him the nod about the agreement. Because the second he's not part of the agreement, first of all, they're going to give him hell because now they have the identity crisis. You see, who he is, he's getting from them. But who they are, they're getting from him. And it could be even their son. But when their son's not playing along with the fictional agreement of the parents, so the parents start asking, who am I then? Because no one knows who the hell they are. Everyone's part of a fictional agreement. No one actually knows who they are. And that's why people are so scared to travel. And that's why it's so important you travel. So you get perspective. You develop yourself. So that you can be someone who's into truth instead of just fictional agreements. But you're majorly messing with this kid's fictional agreements with his family, and the family's going to go against him. And they play hardball, man, because they've got their identity at stake. And when people have their identity at stake, they get crazy. They start pulling out mud and slinging it. And they don't even know what the hell they're talking about. Because what are they arguing against? Judaism? They know nothing. They don't know their knee from their elbow. So they can't even have an intellectual conversation. And so they just go for the jugular on the kid. So what's the antidote? What are you supposed to do? And you're all looking at me like, maybe I don't want to be in Kiruv. No, you want to be in Kiruv. What you need to do is, I'll give you a couple answers. Answer one, pretty simple, is articulate this to the kid. Your family has no idea what they're doing. You know what I tell them to do? I say, next time you're home and your father starts going nuts on you, you say to him, gee, Dad, whenever this Judaism stuff comes up, you seem to get really excited. Maybe you'd like to talk about it. If not with me, maybe someone professional. That's called passive-aggressive. Not a nice thing to say to one's father, but
stops him. It'll stop the father right there because you called him out. You know, gee, Dad, since when are you the world's expert on Judaism? And he's like, I know nothing about it. And you're like, well, I don't know why you can't stop arguing about it. You know, why don't you study it and then we'll talk? Why don't you study some Judaism and then tell me about why I shouldn't be keeping it? But, you know, obviously this is bringing up a lot of emotion for you, and I think you should deal with it. Now, I know that doesn't sound like a nice thing to do to one's father, but it's also not nice for a father to attack his son for trying to have some values. The other thing is that we've noticed at Aish Torah over the years that there's a direct correlation for how long they've spent at Aish versus, meaning how long they've spent here and how well they stay observant. If they stay here, let's say, 3 months, so they're basically going to be cooked when they get back. You understand? They're going to get cooked. They're going to go back and like they got like 3 months of Judaism here, but after a while, you know, they just fall back into their situation at home. Now, if they're from Brooklyn or something, they've got a fighting chance. You know, but if they're from like Timbuktu, you know, good luck. So you got to figure out the ratio of the guy. Figure out how long it would take, and and if he does want to visit his family, you argue against it with everything you got to keep him in yeshiva a little longer. And in the end, if he does go back, you make sure you buy him a ticket back so that he knows, yeah, he's going to be there for 3 weeks and that's it. I remember once my father fought so hard against me being at Aish Torah, so hard for me becoming observant, that they say in those days we didn't have email and we didn't have computers. We had personal computers, but we didn't have email. There was no such thing as that, and we didn't have cell phones or anything. And so he was sending faxes. A fax it's like this machine that's got paper in it, and I don't know how it worked, but by a telephone or something. So my father, they said that the faxes my father sent were the worst in Aish Torah's history. He was like threatening to burn my surfboards if I don't come back. Anyway, what he doesn't realize was after about half a year of this, he finally got his way. I buckled, and I was going to go back to LA. And there was nothing there. There's still nothing for anyone in LA. I mean, no offense if you're from LA, but good luck trying to float being a Balchuva in LA, you know. So, anyway, but then there was really, really nothing. And so I broke. Anyway, Siyata Deshmaya of another rabbi, he sees me leaving the base midrash. And I'm like, he sees I'm pretty sad. He says, sit down, what's the matter? I said, I just can't do this to my father anymore. I just can't do it to him. And, you know, and I showed him some of the faxes, and he was like, whoa. And I said, I'm killing my father. And he says to me, we're sitting at a yeshiva table, he says to me, if your parents had any idea what you're doing for them in this world and the next, they would chain you to this table. He totally chapped it because I was trying to do something for my father by going back to LA. And I could do so much more for him by staying. And so for about 20 years, I always remembered that moment. And here we are now 28 years later, and I still remember that moment. But there was something about that moment that I didn't understand. Because what did he say? If my parents had any idea what I'm doing for them in this world and the next is why I stayed. This world, they're suffering. They're suffering so badly. Why did he say this world? So the answer came later. About 20 years after that happened, my parents had flown back. You know, I have 8 kids, Baruch Hashem, and my parents come to Eretz Yisrael. None of their friends. I was at my mother's 70th birthday, and we were hanging out. You know, after the party, you're hanging out. So I'm hanging out with my mother, and I said, you know, there were about 200 Jewish people at your 70th birthday, and she says, yeah. And I said, they're all Jewish. She says, yeah. And I said, how many of them have observant grandkids? And she said, you mean how many of them have Jewish grandkids? And I said, okay, let's go for that. And she went down the list. She had a list with her, the people she invited. The answer was none. 200 Jewish people in their 70s, 60s, and 70s. Not one Jewish grandchild amongst the whole group. I mean, half of them were waiting for grandchildren. Do you know what's going on out there? People aren't getting married. If they're getting married, they may not even be having kids. And if they're married, they probably married a goy, especially if it's a man. Men love marrying goy because you know what it's like putting up with your mother. You know, they had to put up with that too, and they're not Torah observant, so they're just like, why do I have to put up with that stuff? You know, let me marry my Filipino massage therapist. You know, she's just happy I came home. You know, she's just thankful, you know, that I even returned from my last trip to Vegas. You know, so anyway, so my parents left Yerushalayim after being serenaded at Shabbos tables from my kids, escorted with song to their Airbnb. Well, there was no Airbnb in those days, but to their B&B. No air. And so I called them after their trip to L.A. I called them and I said, so how was your trip back to L.A.? How are things, reintegrating in L.A.? And they're like, it's great, but it's a little hard. And I said, what's so hard? They said, well, everyone wants to know how our trip was. And we don't want to rub it in their face. And I said, what do you want to rub in their face? And they're like, we can't tell them about the nachas we get from you. And we want to apologize for whatever we said years ago to try to get you out of yeshiva because you've given us this world. So you got to realize that you're going to have to put on a little bit of horse blinders when you're messing up some kid with Yiddishkeit. And to know that you're giving his parents both worlds. Because they are going to retire one day. You know, Mr. Workaholic Dad, meaning the Baal Tshuva's dad, Mr. Workaholic Dad is going to retire one day, and his golden years are going to be either spent with nachas, or they're going to be just empty with, some 38-year-old long-haired video playing cannabis head kid, in his baby blue boy bedroom. Like that's what he's going to have from that kid, or he's going to have nachas when he's 38 and playing with his frum little grandkids. I highly suggest that anyone here who hasn't yet committed to the Destinaishions Kiruv program, the series of lectures that will be going on from now till Purim, that you sign up for it. It's worth dedicating those nights. Now, you may not be a Kiruv professional. It doesn't matter. You're going to be in so many circumstances throughout your life that those tools, you don't want to be caught with your pants down when you're next to a Jew who you could do a good deed for, a Jew who you could actually say the right things to. Throughout your life, in business and everything you'll ever be doing, you're always going to find Jews because they bagel you. You know what bagling is? Bagling is when a secular Jew sees you in a kippah. You ever notice that? They walk up to you and they're like, Shalom. And you're like, Shalom. And you realize when you return their Shalom, they feel Jewish for like the next 30 days. You're going to be getting bageled your whole life. But you're going to have all kinds of opportunities. Take the opportunity while you're here in Eretz Yisrael learning Torah. Take the opportunity also to get yourself trained up so that when you'll be in those situations, you're just going to have the right words at the right time and make a massive difference for somebody. It was a blessing to speak to all of you. You guys are amazing guys. And if you want to work deeper, that's what I do. And so I'll be at Dushinsky tomorrow if you want to show up. You have an opportunity. You have a guy who did Destinations last year. Just say a word, Yechiel Miller. Just say, what was it like for you, Yechiel? Just give him one.
More for myself than for anything else.
Oh, really?
You keep on working on yourself the whole year. Personally, all the Moon classes, your tips, and then do all the encounters on the plane on the class. You have to call them. You meet some some secular guy from America, you knock him up. And, anything that you know, they're thirsty. Whatever you can get.
Thanks.
Guys, just a quick announcement for those who already signed up. Next session, December 14th. That means next month of Shabbos is no session. We're going to start at 7:50. Please be here so we can start the class at 8 o'clock. Two unbelievable Aish speakers, Ramonzi Berger, world-renowned Aish Torah rabbi, giving a class on Forget About God, Who Am I, understanding who we are, what people are looking for in life. And the second class, our own Bear Cohen, Aish Torah, great superstar, giving a class on the seven wonders of the world. Those of you that have signed up, have an amazing day.
My dear.
Commitment and reasons and decide. Yeah.
Why would you commit to something without reason?
No. You got to follow the arrows. Reasons lead to decision, and when it's appropriate, it's not always appropriate. Then you go to commitment, and now you're done with reason.
Why would you be done with the reasons? If the reasons are gone, then uncommit, no?
Nope.
Why not?
Marriage, you're going to uncommit because the reasons are gone?
No, because the reasons are not gone. You may not
Putting on your tefillin?
You may not have seen the reasons originally, but the reasons are not gone.
Sometimes they are gone.
If the reasons are completely, for example, if you're married to a divorce, that's reason to divorce, correct?
Maybe you can't decide that.
I should.
Anyway, but I hear what you're saying. What's going on is, let's say it like this. Let's just say it like this. You're working for somebody, and you have every reason not to show up at work one day. Okay? Way more reason not to go than to go. You go. Be that guy.
Life is not about waiting for it to come, right? Life is not about waiting one side and the other side.
Stay committed.
I'll
tell you another thing. If you are committed to work, you won't get all this work.
Yeah, but if you have your dad's funeral, then you're not going to work, right?
That time you'd have to miss
everything
work.
does
I'll tell you something else. You'll never get. You won't need your sick days. You know why? You're so committed to your work that you'll never get sick. I'm not kidding. You get serious.
But everything does have reason.
Yeah, we're not even in the proper discussion. Let's just say you had 10 kids. You have to marry them off, right? You need to right? You're committed to marrying them up. You can't keep them around because you can't afford 38-year-olds in their bed. You can't afford it. When you have 1.2 kids, you can't afford it. There you can. But you're by the way, I'm really just messing with you. Obviously, there are reasons that even you have to get out of a commitment. But I have advice for that, by the way. That whenever you're in a real commitment and you do have to get out of it, you never do it alone. You always get a third party. You go to someone you trust to stick it to you and say that no, this is one of your fears coming up, and that's why you want to get out. You need someone you trust who's willing to poke at your fears and say the reason you want out isn't because of the reasons you said. The reasons are your fear of failure is coming up, your fear of rejection is coming up, your fear of being out of control is coming up. You understand? Like a real mentor. And if you can prove not, or he says, you know what, this has nothing to do with your fears, you're out. You got to leave. You got to get out of this commitment. And then you're out. And that's the only advice I have is when you do have to get out of a commitment, never do it alone.
So, what's going on tomorrow?
There's a flyer at Dushinsky, 6:30 tomorrow. But I would research. You have a smartphone? Whatever. It's personal transformation where you get all this kind of stuff. This is personal transformation where you transform your own life. You transform your own life, and you'll be given a lot. I spend my whole life giving, but it's all from transforming myself. Because it's not giving, it's taking. Meaning, hey, it's really. Meaning I used to play a lot of concerts and teach a lot of classes, but no one knew I was actually taking. I was taking the whole time. They're gonna love me at this place. And they're gonna think I'm smart when I get to share. And I wasn't giving a concert. I was taking it. And once I did all my work inside, I I gave my first concert. I gave my first class. The difference has been massive. Because I got inside the being and finding out everything I was doing was covering some garbage being. You understand? And every person you will ever meet has garbage being. Everybody. You'll never find a person that have garbage being secretly underneath it all. And then all they're doing is just total band-aid over the garbage being. So that's what we're doing. It's 5 straight days where we're going to go down the rabbit hole of the being and find out why we do what we do. And everything we're up to, it's very heavy. Very heavy. A lot of tears shed. It's totally anonymous. Whoever's there, no one will ever know you're there.
Cost money?
Yeah, it's $650 for people who are supported, and unless they're supported by an Breath Cola, and anyone who supports himself who's not working on his learning.
Your brother Sam Leisure?
Yeah. Whatever you do, you don't ask your mashgiach or your rosh or your minah. Because it's the worst nightmare. You're going to be out 5 nights straight getting messed with by me. You understand? You go top secret if you come. You're top secret. Unless there's a couple of rosh shoes here of the maturity. Barry Klein, he sends his boys. Rabbi Center sends his boys. Yeah, you got to have courage, because if you're a minal, you just want your kids being, let it all explode on their wives when they get married. Like, not while I'm the mashgiach, not while I'm the minal. No one wants some buffer spilling out all over their yeshiva. But we sew you up at the end. Everyone's sewn up. We open you, sew you up.
Joseph Dansby sends his regards.
Oh, wow. How do you know?
Nice.
Say hi to him.
Alright, definitely.
This is Yisrael Noach, named after Yisrael Noach Weinberg.
How long is the...
It's 5 nights. It's Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday from 6:30 to 11:30 at night. 5 hours a night. Yeah. Normally you do, but because I've been out of the country so much, we have room. You can just come. Yeah, normally you got to reserve your seat. Sure. It's like the most intense Nordic style most you've ever been in your life, and we cut through the whole thing. It's a full MRI on your every little motivation that you never know you're busy doing. You don't even know you're doing it. It's all the hidden stuff. It's like it really exposes your blind spots. But when you get out of there, you're just in full bittul and just neshama, and then you start being really committed to things, because you're just like, I don't have to look good for it. I don't have to look good for it. I can just be a good person and solid, and I'm in. Be an I'm in guy. I have whole offices in Brooklyn that send. Once the CEO does it, everyone in his office is in there. He pays for it. It just fills. It's for people who are supported, it's $650 US. If you're being supported by a father works, $650 US. In America, it's $950. Here it's $650, and if someone's not being supported, it's $500, or their father's not pregnant.
Father, what's it called? Free travel, first class ticket.
Yeah, anyone can come tomorrow. Yeah, if you want to, just come tomorrow.
Tomorrow? Check it out tomorrow.
Tomorrow you can, yeah.
Tomorrow
You just won't believe it. Yeah, you can actually just come tomorrow. Monday you got to be committed. Sunday you can just come. What?
Just a trial.
Yeah, you can come here just try.
What time is it? What time is it there?
But I'll stop you. It's an intense night, man. It's not an intro. I did an intro in Dushinsky on Thursday, with a chant. This is not an intro. This is the seminar. We're going in.
What time is it?
6:30. Tomorrow's going to start more at like 7 because everyone's on standard Jewish time the first night. Yeah, you can come after. Yeah, you know where there's Shtibelach there? On the same floor as the Shtibelach, there's a door in the back. That big stone, like Jerusalem stone. 5 hours every night for 5 nights straight. The work we do in there shows up on an MRI. That's why it's every night. Because it actually shows up in an MRI.
Why is it that deep?
You have a part of your brain called the default mode networks in the center of the brain. The default mode network's job is to basically suppress your brain from overly networking while you're on a task, which is good. Like, you don't want the guy driving the car down Palisades Highway, like saying, "Hey, check out that bird." You know, you're the passenger, you check out the room. Let him stay on task. So it turns out that our brains can't distinguish between a highway and walking into a wedding. Because when we walk into a wedding, we'll just digitize the default mode network. We'll digitize the room, unnetwork the whole place. Everything you see is really, it'll all be predictive models from the brain. And all you'll do is just search for someone you know to keep yourself safe. Because your brain can't distinguish a highway from a wedding reception. And so you're not really at the wedding. You're not at anything. You're not even in your own marriage. You're not even at your own wedding. It's the number one thank you I get is from Buckman after they get married. They're like, I was at my wedding, thank you. Because you can get the default mode network to shut up. How? By attacking the actual content. What's the content of the default mode network? Content of your default mode network is to watch for accidents. Accidents meaning rejection accidents, failure accidents, being controlled by others accidents, fear of the unknown accidents. These are all the accidents it's detecting for. But what you can do is actually take it offline, get the default mode network to shut up. Because I'm not on a freaking highway. I'm going to a wedding. I want to enjoy myself. I'm talking to my wife. I'm at my chuppah. This is not an emergency. Or I'm reading Tosfos. And yeah, my Chavrusa may think I'm dumb, but I'm going to be 10 times more dumb worrying about whether I can read it rather than just simply read the words. And so everything starts winding up being predictive models based on your past, because every little booby you got in your being when you're little, every little booby you got in your being when you're little is what your default mode network's projecting for. And so you're never anywhere. Even while I'm speaking now, I'm probably cutting through a bit just because I'm talking about the default mode network. So your default mode network's probably getting caught, with his pants down right now. He doesn't know what he's doing. But you're never anywhere. You eat the concept of an apple when you eat an apple. You're not eating it. It's all predictive models. You live in predictive models all the time. So I discovered a way via my past before I became observant. I discovered a way of how to get the default mode network to shut up. And then I became observant. And then a couple years later, I realized that you don't have to actually ingest a mushroom to get someone's default mode network to shut up. And I created the Possibility Seminar to help people get back to themselves and get their brains networked. And you'll notice all the top startups in the world are all doing this work. All the best ideas, everything that's showing up on the smartphones, all that's coming from them. Every one of them are graduates of this kind of work. Or they're eating the mushrooms. But everyone's... You're kidding. About maybe 1,000 hours. Turning time, YouTube. Yeah, I just did a note last week. I just got on my way in my video media. I have a whole media group. They said I got a lot of no-fap views. You know what no-fap is? I just found out what no-fap is. Like guard your eyes. So there's this whole movement now in the secular world for Shmiras Bris. It's called no-fap. So I did my first no-fap video last week, and it's booming in views right now. And I really want to see. What I can't imagine what he put. I hope he didn't put anything upstairs. Oh, there it is. Jewish no-fap. Yeah, it's on my. That's funny. It came up. Jewish no-fap on my channel.
Is rather young?
Yeah, this is my channel. You can subscribe. Jewish no-fap.
You ever get crosses here?
Every day at 3, across the way.
Oh, I know there's a lot of walking.
Yeah. If you want a super deep class, you watch this before tomorrow, you'll be there. Oh no, sorry, not that one. That's the relation between chaos and order. There's the Untorny Time, chaos and order. I did it in Flatbush 2 weeks ago. That's a freak out sci-fi thriller, hour and a half experience. That's really cool. Yeah, so.
You teach mindfulness? What does that mean?
It's not mindfulness, but we do a little towards the end, because once you're kind of story free, so now you can start to distinguish between the chatter of your brain and the you hearing the chatter. That's mindfulness. Mindfulness is the awareness of your awareness. So we do it later, last night, Thursday night we'll be doing some mindfulness. But if you don't know the content of the default mode network, so mindfulness is cute. You can short-circuit it with mindfulness. And it works. It really works. It really works. But it's better to know the street science of where you go when you're trying to protect yourself, from nothing. There's zero threat, once you're off the highway. Okay, gentlemen. It's a pleasure. Anyone else want to?
How long is the shift?
It's 5 hours a night.
So tomorrow's also 5 hours?
Yep, every night. Yeah, and people say, how am I going to sit for 5 hours? I'm ADHD. I'm like, when it's about you, you can sit for 10 hours. This is all about you.
What's the type of content you get to on those 3 hours?
This is all kind of my brain on Yiddishkeit. It's like I'm just thinking through Yiddishkeit, articulating stuff, a lot of Kabbalah and stuff. Yeah. Just Yom Tov Laser Gmail. Or WhatsApp I have. Okay.
Someone's trying to choke you.
Someone? Daddy, you need to learn how to Daddy, you need to learn how to
It doesn't necessarily.
Thank you.
Why is she?
Yeah, it's not.